Welcome, bent riders around the world. My name is Gary Solomon, and you're watching the Laid Back Bike Report. Well, it's a special treat to have you all with us again today on the Laid Back Bike Report. Let me tell you what we got coming up on this amazing show. First of all, we're going to kick it off with Honza Galla, as usual, with the Recumbent news. Honza's got some really interesting stuff to talk about. And then our special featured guest this month is Dr. Craig Cornelius. He is going to talk about different approaches to the tilting trike design. So I think you will enjoy that. We've got the bicycle man, Peter Stull, with us, of course, and he's going to have a little talk about putting a bent into your car or van or truck and the best ways to transport that, especially trike. We have Tim Segard with us again today from our review team. And today he's going to be talking about the Cruzbike S40. Nina Paley is with us as always, and she's got a very special video on experience she had with the Greenspeed Magnum. It's a new version with e-assist and kind of an unusual combination on that trike. I think you'll enjoy that. And of course, Denny Voorhees will be back with the sports report. We've got a combo sports report today, including our pal Mike Mowett, who will give us a report from the HPRA races in Michigan last week. And our own Larry Seidman will be with us with a couple of reports, Nebraska Senior Games and the Steamboat Springs Triathalon. So lots in store today. But before we get started with that, I really want to introduce our crew, the people that make this all possible. Can you pop them up, Larry? First of all, of course, is Larry Seidman from Colorado Springs, who will be doing the directing with us today. Hi, Larry.
Hi, Gary.
Good. I thought the altitude was getting to you for just a second. Out in Mississippi, Jackson is our media guy himself. It is Trey Burgoyne. Hi, Trey.
Hello, folks. Good to be here.
Good to have you with us. And from the Czech Republic, that news director that I talked about before, it is Honza Galla. It's great to have you with us, Honza.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
Okay, yeah. Alfred Station, New York is where you're going to find the bicycle man. Right there in his shop, it's Peter Stull. Hi, Peter.
Hi, how you doing?
It's great to have you with us. And Champaign-Urbana, Illinois is where you're going to find Nina Paley. Nina, behind the mic. How you doing, Nina?
Howdy. Good to be here.
Great to have you with us. And our sports director, it's Denny Voorhees. And Denny, you've got a lot packed in today. How's it going?
Yeah, good. My report was right up to the last minute, so we're ready to go.
Good. And not on the crew, but our special guest today is Dr. Craig Cornelius. Hello, Craig. We're glad to have you with us too.
Thank you, Gary, for having me on with all these illustrious, laid-back people.
It's great to have you. And speaking of illustrious and certainly laid back, it is it's our good friend Larry Varney. Larry, you want to highlight him? And Larry, as most of the bent world knows, you've been a little under the weather lately, and we've all been a little concerned. So it's great to see you. Do you have a few things you want to give an update to folks?
Okay. Yeah, I hope you can hear me pretty well. But yeah, I've been in a hospital or a rehab center for almost a month. Hadn't been fun. I would go into great detail about why I'm here, but that's give an extra rating to the Laid Back Bike Report. Just let us say that very low potassium apparently is not a very good thing. Neither is urinary retention. Anyway, I'm scheduled to go back home tomorrow. hopefully things will get back more to normal. And I'll get back on a bike or a trike. And it's just very good to say hi to everybody. And looking forward to watching the show.
All right. So, Larry, we are so glad that you took the opportunity to join us. We all, of course, wish you the very best. And I know speak for the entire recumbent community around the world. Please get better as soon as you can. Get back to riding and get back with us on the Laid Back Bike Report. You take care, pal.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Let's move along here, and let me tell you about how you can participate in the Laid Back Bike Report when it's live like this. The live chat is what we use both on Facebook and on YouTube. So feel free to post any questions you have, make comments. You can chat amongst your fellow bent riders there. It's a community, and we encourage you to take advantage of it. Tell us where you're watching from too, of course. We love to see that, and I'll try to pop some of those up on the screen as we go along. Now, how can you support the Laid Back Bike Report? If you like what we do here, please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can click the little white eye that's up there. It'll take you to the laidbackbikereport.com website. Find out all kinds of information about our past shows, future shows, and more. So do that. And of course, one of the best ways is to become a Patreon supporter. If you go to patreon.com, look up Laid Back Bike Report, you can support us for as little as $1 a month. And we always appreciate that. You can see some of our supporters right in some of these pictures here. So, all right, let me tell you about how else we are supported. And it's our wonderful sponsors, some of the best folks in the industry, starting out with TerraCycle. Let's back up to TerraCycle if we can. I know that Trey's having some problems with the slides there. There we go. TerraCycle, makers of exquisite recumbent parts and accessories for your bent. And Trailside Trikes. There we go. A fine recumbent trike shop on the Withlacoochee Trail in Florida and now in Knoxville, Tennessee as well. And Cruzbike. Cruzbike is designed for the cyclist who wants to ride farther, climb faster, and adventure more. All cruise bikes and frame sets ship free in the USA. And TerraTrike Greenspeed, the best in leisure performance, adventure, touring, electric, and portability. Wherever your adventure leads, TerraTrike will take you there. And Greenspeed, where Ian Sims designs, bring performance through science and engineering. And Laid Back Cycles, the top USA dealer for TerraTrike and the premier source for Catrike, Ice, and Greenspeed. We give you the freedom to ride. And Recumbent CycleCon. Of course, we postponed the 2021 Recumbent CycleCon trade show and convention, but please join us on October 8th and 9th, 2022 at the Montgomery County Fairgrounds in Dayton, Ohio. For more info, check out recumbentcyclecon.com. All right, guys, now let's move on to the show where we are going to kick it off with the recumbent news. And no better person to share that with us than Honza Galla. Larry, let's take a look at the report.
Hello, recumbent riders. Here I am once again, Honza Galla from recumbent.news with a new set of news items from the past month. The first one is an article in New York Times, which is important for the recumbent industry and the recumbent world in general. An article about component shortages and issues in the logistics and the supply chain of bike parts, where Mark Egland from Catrike describes their issues with components. He describes also how they are sitting on 500 trikes in stock, which are missing just the rear delayer and which didn't come from Taiwan, and they are still waiting for it. So, but we all know about the shortages. We all know about the delays. This is something this is not news new anyhow. But the thing that the recumbent industry has been mentioned in a newspaper like the New York Times is an important one, and it was a great promotion for the market, for the industry, for the recumbent world. The second one is the announcement from Gerald Nichols just a few days ago. He has announced that the Run's bikes will be or has been renamed to Phoenix Bikes, Phoenix Bike Works. You can read more information about this topic on recumbent.news as well, where you can find a link to a new webpage of Phoenix Bike Works, where Gerald describes very well why he has done such decision, such change, and what that will mean for the current owners of runs, long wheelbase, mostly long wheelbase recumbents, or what that will mean for the future owners. A third news is that Utah Trikes, the very known recumbent trike dealer in Utah, has moved to a new location finally, and after their hard work they all had to do on this task, they started to make their videos again. So the YouTube channel is live again, and you can expect their great videos again as well. I would like to mention also 3 articles from Recumbent.news I have published last month, which I think are worth your attention. First of all, it is a double interview with winners of the Sun Trip, the race of solar bikes. Both of them raced in velomobiles, and after 1 month long race, they finished just with 3 hours of difference. What a battle at the end, and I really like the interview, and so you can read it there. Another great one interview is the 10-to-1 interview from my 10-to-1 series with Sylvia Harpern, who I think is one of the celebrities in the recumbent world. Some people don't like this word celebrity, but she's definitely one of those people like to follow very much. So you can read the interview, and you can also watch her new videos on her Travels by Trike YouTube channel. And last one is an article, but it's mostly about a video showing how ASAP recumbents built a trike for a guy with no arms and just 1 leg. So no hand controls and single leg powered trike. An amazing piece, which is showing how recumbent trikes, how they can help handicapped people riding and getting a new freedom. And last but not least, an information about a recumbent catalog I have prepared on the recumbent.news. So this is a worldwide recumbent catalog of bikes and trikes, all cycles, which are in production at the moment, or I try to have it as comprehensive as possible. So at the moment you can find there 40 brands and around 200 models. I'm still adding new ones as the information comes about some secret brands, let's say, or not so visible brands I even haven't heard about yet. So this is very interesting and also challenging for me, because this catalog took me about 1 year to prepare. You can, as you can see, you can filter by brands, or you can filter by categories. Categories are two-wheelers, trikes, quads, and velomobiles, of course. On the left side, you can see another filtering options. So you can filter by the maximum rider's weight, or you can filter by type of steering or size of the wheels. So you can play with it a bit. There are some models and some brands which have better promotion. Those are brands I have to thank for supporting the Recumbent.news, so you can find more information, more photos about the particular models, and also link to the web page. And then there are some black and white photos of models which you can use. You can filter according to the parameters, but there is no link to the web page. You can then just Google it and find the information by yourself, which is not so difficult. I hope there will be more brands helping me keeping the Recumbent catalog and keeping the Recumbent.news working in the future and supporting the project. So have a great time, and bye-bye.
Oh, great. We have to talk about the catalog. Honza, I've already, let's see. This may be a bridge too far for you. So Ronald Thompson wants to know about a hard copy of the catalog. I don't know who does that these days. Tell us, when is that hard copy going to be appearing in the post office boxes across the world?
Well, I think never. I'm almost sure. The thing is that it changes so quickly. I have published it, and maybe 14 days after the first announcement I did on the in the magazine, the Ren's renamed to Phoenix Bike Works. So this would be already, even it would not be out of the printer, and it would be outdated. So and it is really about currently available bikes. I don't have any aim to bring old brands, old models, even or some which didn't make it to production, and so on and so on. These people were asking about them. People like to see their own bikes and their own models in the catalog, but they may be 10, 15 years old, and I don't have the power to keep something like that running. So I think even running this catalog of currently available models will be a difficult task, because I need to update it every year at least and keep it up to date. So it makes sense.
Absolutely. Is there a tandem filter, Joe?
You can do a tandem filtering in the trikes and bikes or two-wheelers like categories. So you can do that. There are some filters. I can imagine having more of them there. I already think there can be a frame material, let's say, or country of origin, or the weight of the model, which is kind of difficult, or the turning circle for trikes, where there is no standard in the recumbent industry. So you can find different, let's say, types of measuring the turning circle, which makes it difficult. But I will try to add those. Maybe every year I will try to add some of the parameters to filter. Well, so, and there are, I have still two things I would like to mention.
Sure.
One is that some of the filterings are based on ranges, not exact parameters or exact values. So, for example, the maximum rider's weight, there would be quite some numbers because different brands have different riders' weight limits. So I tried to make it kind of in the ranges, so you can it's usable in a way. And also, let's say the seat height for two-wheelers is kind of difficult to manage, at least for each bike, because some of the information is not available or that information is not available from every manufacturer. But at least I have added like 3 different ranges, so you can use it. And I have realized just a few hours ago that there are still some very important brands missing, like the Linear or Avenue Trikes. So my big apologies to Peter Stull for that. And I will try to improve that as soon as possible.
Well, you can, there you go. You can directly apologize. I was going to bring Peter up anyways. First of all, Honza, a wonderful project. I think we all agree. I know no one really understands all the work that goes into something like that. So kudos to you. You will never recoup monetarily what it is for your time to do this, and I know it's a labor of love for you to do this, so appreciation from all of us to you for that. Let's one of the other subjects you touched on, and I'm hesitant to go too deeply into this. We've talked about it quite a number of times, but it's so important. The New York Times article that interviewed our pal Mark Egeland at Cat Trike about shortages in the recumbent triking world, and then kind of that article kind of extended out saying this is affecting so many industries. But as far as our audience goes, almost all of us have experienced a lot of these shortages. And Peter, I wanted actually to see if we get a quick update from you, from a man in the shop at this time. Tell us what you see out there in terms of the supply chain. Is it about the same? Do you anticipate getting better anytime soon from your aspect?
Well, I would say at the moment, I mean, we all said, oh, I'm looking forward to 2020 being over and availability coming back, but it's worse this year than last year, and it may not be better next year. Apparently, Shimano is back ordered 2 to 5 years on different components, especially midline, low-line price derailleurs. They're back 5 years? Wow. But I find my job has changed quite a bit now. I'm spending a lot of time ordering parts. I mean, we ordered 100 Avenue Trikes in September, and now they're not going to ship. They're not going to have seats for them until October. So that's 13 months later. And then they'll try to find a container, and then they'll try to find space on a boat. And when they do arrive here, they're not going to have tires and tubes and brake calipers and rear derailleurs and shifters and chains and pedals. Fortunately, last year we built a warehouse, and the warehouse is full of chains and pedals and tubes. Yeah, we got the parts to build them all now, but wow, this is different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of get your latest on that, and I know it's a problem. It sounds like you're in relatively good shape, better than maybe some others. But the point
that's not a blue screen behind us. That's right, our showroom today.
The point being, and it's the point of the New York Times article, is that all it takes is one essential component to be missing, and the trike is useless. You can't ride it. So it's the weakest link is really what we're talking about here, I think. So, okay, Honza, any final thoughts then? Is that pretty much it for you?
No, thanks.
Sure, of course. And we're glad you were able to come up with that again. Thanks for the catalog. And Peter, we're going to talk to you a little bit later on. So we're going to move on from here. Thanks, pal. All right, folks. Now on to the main segment of the show. You saw Craig Cornelius a little bit earlier as I introduced him, and we had a chance to really sit down and talk about tilting trikes, a more philosophical look. Now, we've had quite a few tilting trikes on the show here in the last year, many different kinds, everything from Velo Tilt to the AR3 and the wooden tilting trike from the UK. All of them interesting in their own right. But Craig is going to talk to us about the design of these in general and what he thinks are the advantages and disadvantages of various kinds. So let me not belabor that anymore. I think we're going to jump right into Craig's talk. So Larry, let's hear what Craig had to say about this. With me right now is Craig Cornelius. Craig, how are you today?
I'm just fine, Gary. Thank you.
Craig is going to talk to us all about tilting trikes, a subject that we have been laboring over for quite a few months with various other folks. We're going to do a bit of a background and summary of all this, and Craig is eminently qualified to do this. Craig, tell us a little bit about that background of yours.
Okay, I'm a retired mechanical engineer. I have a PhD in mechanical engineering and biomechanics from the University of Wisconsin. I've been doing the human-powered thing since 1969, when I saw an article by a man named Riley on a recumbent tricycle that he developed. So I've been doing this long time. I've traditionally picked what I call projects that other people avoided. I spent 10 years working on rear steering bicycles with some mixed success, but I've seen other people copying my results, so that was kind of nice. Worked on adding arm power to recumbents. Arm power works well with recumbents because your body is fixed. And in my case, my legs never produced as much power as I would have with an upright bicycle. So I said, hey, I've got cardio to burn. So I followed that up. And then the last and probably longest project has been trying to develop an all-weather commuter vehicle. And that's kind of led me to the tilting trike direction. Mainly because quads are not, at least in Washington State, are not considered bicycles. And if you electrify them, it gets even worse. So you're not allowed to ride them on bike trails and things like that. So the solution looked like a leaning trike. And that's what I'd like to talk about, what I've learned and what I think people should know going forward.
Sounds great. And we're going to get into that presentation. And right before we do, I think maybe the folks would be interested in knowing what you are riding these days in the way of recumbents.
Okay, so I bought an Avatar recumbent in 1985. I'm still riding the thing. I have sawed through 2 front derailleurs. I've broken the seat 3 times. I've broken the frame once, but kind of keep repairing things and keep going. So it's more miles than any other bike I've had.
Let's delve into your presentation about tilting trikes and all you have to say about the whole genre here.
Probably the most significant social project that I've played with is trying to come up with an all-weather commuter, pedal-powered commuter tricycle. Actually, a commuter vehicle, but the quad thing makes you kind of default to it being a tricycle. A lot of people have dabbled with this as a project. In my less than humble opinion, I don't think anybody's come up with a solution that I would consider checks off all of the boxes. So a formative point in my life was I was into cycling in the early 70s, and in 1973, 2 aerospace engineers, Robert Bundschuh and Lionel Martin, who were working at a place called Gyrodyne. So Gyrodyne made missiles. but they were kind of moonlighting designing a human-powered vehicle. This was during the gas crisis, so a lot of your listeners probably don't remember that, but it was a time when cars were lined up around the block to get gasoline. So these guys thought this is a perfect time to put out a pedal-powered vehicle. And it got a lot of publicity, newspaper articles, Popular Science. It even was to the point where one of Chrysler's industrial designers lampooned it. And the reason for the lampooning was there wasn't a human-powered vehicle or a velomobile category or an e-bike category. So it was kind of lumped with automobiles, except it had pedal power. It did a lot of things right. It didn't do everything right, but it came very close. Unfortunately, there was only about 20 vehicles produced. And it kind of went off into obscurity. And I collected literature from the 1973 articles, and then subsequently did a post on my blog about it. Anyway, this is my vision that I have in the back of my mind when I'm thinking about a commuter vehicle, except it doesn't have four wheels. So I came up with a list of the stuff I thought should be in an all-weather pedelectric commuter vehicle. Of course, inclement weather protection, statically stable on slippery surfaces. There's an area that there's a bike trail near me that has a curve in it, and I've been on it roller skiing when there's been ice, and I just watch the cyclists come around the curve, lose traction, and fall down. So slippery surfaces, you need more than two wheels. Reasonable cruise speed, something about 25 miles an hour. Rollover resistance of 1G, meaning you're being able to corner at 1G, where the G force is defined as velocity squared divided by the radius of the curve. Cargo carrying capacity, be able to carry a couple of grocery bags. No wider than a bicycle, and I put that number at 36 inches because I've come across barriers or poles on trails that are spaced about 36 inches, so you could get through those. It turns out that in Holland, on the cycle paths, that dimension is 30 inches, so it's even narrower. But they're thinking, I think, mostly about velomobiles and regular bicycles. So I think that's probably something easy for your low velomobile to make. Comfortable posture and ease of entry. For an old guy like me, something like a low velomobile, a little bit difficult to get in and out of, and a little bit hard on the back. It turned out that the Pedicar had a door like a car, and you just opened the door, climbed in, sat down, closed the door, and went off. I think two-wheel drive would be good, especially if you're in a situation where you're going to ride it in the snow. Car-type wheel access, meaning the wheel is accessible for changing flats, so basically cantilevered wheels, and electric assist. I think if you have a reasonably streamlined vehicle, electric assist may do nothing but get you up the hills. But where I live, there's lots of hills, so that's a big deal. So, okay, why three wheels and tilting? Of course, the statement previously, bicycles aren't stable on slippery surfaces. E-bike regulations in the US and Canada limit the number of wheels to 3. In fact, it's even more specific. It says one of the 3 wheels must be 20 inches or larger. So some of the designs I have violate that. 2 wheels can be driven for improved traction. So that means if with your tricycle layout, if it's a delta, you're going to have to steer with the front and drive both rear wheels. If it's a tadpole trike, you run into an interesting situation. If you drive both front wheels, steering both front wheels is mechanically messy. I've played with driving both front wheels and steering the rear wheel, and that's a whole issue in itself. So these are my requirements for the trike, and they've come from building vehicles that haven't met the requirements and then kind of suffering. Big one is must be able to start and stop when the trike is in an enclosed fairing without falling over. One of my trikes, the Egovia 2, when it didn't have a fairing, life was good, but once I put a fairing on it, I had trouble getting my feet down and up. I crashed it about 4 times, several times starting, several times stopping. So I say, don't prevent leaning to the extent that it tips over. And that's the second point there. The 1G turn without tipping over, that seems like it might be extreme. In the category 3 for the e-bikes can go up to 27 miles an hour. So a 1G turn at that speed is about a 48 feet radius. That isn't that tight a turn. So I think if you're going 27 miles an hour and you're going to take a turn, if you can't handle that, you might flip. Visibility is probably a debatable thing from the perspective of a lot of velomobile riders. I'd like to have my head top of my head about 48 inches. Sports cars might get, below 40 inches, but I think 48 is a reasonable number. And then to fit through barriers, a width of 36 inches. So if you're going to do leaning with a tricycle, the question is, how do you control it? The most obvious thing is to control the steering and leaning into one motion. Most of the vehicles that are out there free lean like a bicycle. So you just lean it, and if you don't know that you've got 3 wheels, you're not going to be able to tell whether you're in a bicycle or a tricycle. Another way is to have free leaning with a centering spring, and the centering spring basically just works in the middle of your upright travel to make it easy to start. Another way to do it is to have free leaning with a lean lock. So the lean lock is a lever you pull and it locks it wherever you're leaned to. That has some issues associated with it, and you can fix that if you have free leaning with a centering lean lock. So the centering lean lock basically only works when you're near upright. You pull the lever, it straightens you up completely and locks things. Another approach is dual control. One lever leans you, another lever does the steering. And then what I call supplementary controlled leaning, you're basically a static tricycle and you can add some lean for tight turns. Okay, so these are some examples of those approaches. Coupled lean and steering control. The Mattel Rocket Trike up in the upper right-hand corner may be the first leaning tricycle that anybody's come up with. And I remember seeing it as a kid and thinking, wow, that's pretty cool. As Gary pointed out, it's also rear steering, so it definitely had some issues. And then, of course, recently we have David Aschenbrenner's AR3 trike, and the performance of that is very impressive. Most coupled lean and steering devices have a problem called bump steer, whereas if you hit something one of the tires hits something, it pivots around the central beam and you get unexpected steering. And my first Ecovia had a problem with this. I was going down a road, hit a rut that I didn't see. Next thing I know, I am upside down in the road. And fortunately, there was, it was no traffic there. Never rode that vehicle again, but I did have the steering and the lean coupled together. Free leaning, it's what most of the vehicles you will see do. The Dreimer is an example of this from Europe. And I don't think it has any lean locking abilities. The problems, of course, with free leaning are stopping and starting when you have a fairing around you. And to do a 1G turn, you have to lean at 45 degrees. That's a lot of lean. If you look at the gentleman in the upper right and the right side of that photograph, he's leaned maybe at 60 degrees. Leaning that type of design over at 45 degrees really requires a great range of motion with your mechanisms. And we've all seen photographs of motorcycle riders leaning like that and with their knees up so they don't scrape the knees or scrape the tailpipes. It's a hard thing to do comfortably. And your tires have to maintain traction at that point. So that's the big downside of free leaning. So this is a design from the famous George Georgiev, who has the Vector speed bikes. I've met Georgiev years ago. He is a sculptor by trade, but the guy has an amazing ability to solve mechanical engineering problems. So with his Varney trike, he's got a torsion spring kind of down the center of the vehicle that the rider and the handlebars are one moving piece, and then the rear wheels are another moving piece, and there is this torsion spring in there. And what the torsion spring does is it centers you. It holds you centered when you're near upright, so it's easy to get started and stopping. But if you lean far enough, you overwhelm the spring, and then it's a regular free leaning design. So the biggest problem with this is, again, the 45 degree angle that you need to lean it to get the 1G turn. This, of course, is something that most of your listeners know all about, the velo tilt. Just a side note, when my rear steering Ecovia Mark I didn't work, the obvious thing was to flip it from a tadpole, rear steering tadpole to a front steering delta. And there were videos of the early versions of, it wasn't called a velo tilt there, but there were videos of this that showed that it worked. So I said, gee, if I do something like this, it will stay up. And the Ecovia Mark II and III all look pretty similar to this. The difference being is the velo tilt drives the front wheel, and I was driving both back wheels. The velo tilt has a lean lock, and I confess to copying the lean lock. Their original lean lock for the Quadrant used a disc brake rotor and a disc brake caliper, and you pulled a lever and clamped the brake. That worked pretty good, so I use that. The problems with this were, A, knowing if the lean lock is engaged, and B, knowing when to engage it. And I was doing some hill testing with the Ecovia Mark II, and the problem was getting it just upright enough and pulling the lean lock lever. And I'm kind of weaving back and forth, so my leaning is changing. So that was always a problem. And then the question is stopping. When do you pull the lever? So that's a problem with that. So what I did with the Ecovia Mark II after I had my crashing issues is I went in there and designed a mechanism that centers the vehicle upright and locks it in one motion. Problem with that is you can't exert enough force to straighten it up from being leaned all the way over. So you had to be sort of near upright for it to work. It worked pretty well with two problems. The one thing is remembering that it was locked up. I was riding this down a road and I forgot that it wasn't locked up. Fortunately, it was a Friday morning with no traffic. And, you forget that you're supposed to be leaning a big S-weave into what would have been traffic, but there was no traffic. So there's a problem with that. And again, it must be upright. A good friend of mine, fellow human-powered vehicle person, Jerry Onifer, when I had him over to play with this, he said he couldn't imagine that an average person could deal with the two modes of operation. One is free leaning, and the other is static trike when it's locked up. He thought that your average person wouldn't be able to comfortably handle that. And as a result of that, I sort of changed directions on my design work there. So next slide. So this is a tripendo. Gary mentioned he's seen these in Europe. This sort of led me to the Ecovia Mark III. One lever leans, one lever steers. And again, my friend Jerry pointed out, he said, how are you going to remember which lever does what? So this is Ecovia Mark III. So basically what I have is under seat steering, and I steer with both hands. And on the side, I have an auxiliary lean lever. So up until about 0.4 Gs, it's just a static trike, and I ride it like that. If I start making a turn that I feel is tighter than that's comfortable, I can reach up and pull the lean lever. You pull it one way to lean it one way and pull it the other. It's pretty intuitive. Its lever is on the left side. You pull it back, it leans left. You push it forward, it leans right. And this I considered a pretty successful experiment in that you could mix the two modes. At no point are you free leaning. At no point do you have to interactively work with the lean control. You pull it for leaning and do your turn, and then you can pull it back. The difficulty is for the angle of lean that was required, the forces on the lever were huge. And this only leaned at 19 degrees, and I calculated I needed about 26 degrees for a 1G turn. That means that this mechanism is not adequate for that type of approach. Okay, so I did a scorecard of the vehicles we've talked about. David Aschenbrenner's AR3 trike, no tip at starting, it meets that requirement. The no tip at the limit of static lean, it meets that requirement. No tip at a 1G turn, it meets that requirement. Unfortunately, it doesn't meet the 48-inch height requirement, but it does meet the width is less than 36 inches requirement. And my comment is his design doesn't have a bump steer problem, which I think is very impressive work on his layout. Dreimer trike, it can tip over when starting. It can tip over at the lean limit. It can't do a 1G turn without tipping over. Height is good, 48 inches, and width is good, less than 36 inches. Georgiev's Varney trike, starting and stopping, easy with his centering spring. And if you were to see a video of that, and you can find a video online on the Varney trike, the performance is awesome. When you see it riding, it looks like it just balances by itself. No tip at the static limit. It looks like it will tip over. It looks like it can't get to a 1G turn without tipping over. The height is good at 48 inches, and the width is very narrow, and it easily meets the 36 inches. Velo tilt, no tip at starting. It meets that requirement because of the lean lock. No tip at the lean limit. It's very low, and it turns out that this is a parallel wheeled leaning trike. The parallel wheel leaning trikes, the two paired wheels, the spacing between them increases as the vehicle leans. So there's no way that you could overturn this at 1G. In fact, it's probably definitely in excess of 1G. The height, of course, it doesn't meet the height requirement. It is very low. And the width requirement, it satisfies. Then we have the EcoVia Mark II, which had the centering lean lock. So you could start it and stop it without tipping. It would tip over free leaning, so that wasn't good. It was good free leaning, lean limit. It was good for about half a G. Of course, the height met the requirement because it was designed in there, and the width met the requirement. It was designed in there as well. The Tripendo, easy to start, stop and start without tipping over. It's low enough that it appears that it will not tip over at its lean limit. Looks like it's good for a 1G turn at its lean limit. It's too low though. It's it's less than 48 inches, but the width is good. And it has the possible confusion of which lever do you pull to do what. And then the EcoVia Mark III, which is basically static with an extra bump in leaning, good starting and stopping. It's designed so that it can't lean farther than where it would tip. It couldn't do a 1G turn. It calculated it looked like it might be 3/4 of a G. Height was good, and the width was good. The track on that was 30 inches, so I figured the width is probably about 34 inches. I refer to the Toyota iRoad, which I'm very impressed with. I'm also envious because my first EcoVia had the same layout as the iRoad. I couldn't make free leaning work, balancing and steering the rear wheel. Of course, the iRoad has a lot of nice electronics, so it works just fine. My design needs a different kind of lean lever control to exert the forces that are necessary to pick it up from a 23-degree lean angle, which is what I calculated. And I'm thinking something like a tiller wheel or a hand wheel might allow one to develop those forces, albeit having to move it, a full revolution to pick it up and put it back down. So, observations. Free leaning doesn't benefit from the spacing between the two paired wheels. It's just like a bicycle, and think of the two paired wheels as training wheels that are always in contact, but they're not really limiting what happens during the free lean thing. So a free leaning approach can't meet the width and the height and the 1G rollover requirements. Whereas a controlled leaning approach adds the benefit of leaning to the rollover requirement of the paired wheels. And if you think of this, if you have a vehicle with a track of, say, 30 inches, if you can lean the vehicle over to the point, so a vehicle with a track of 30 inches, and I'm talking about the effective track, which is 2/3 of the actual track because it's a triangle. But a vehicle with an effective track of 30 inches basically has a distance of 15 inches from the center of gravity to the outside wheel. And that's what's your rollover resistance comes from. Now, if you lean it all the way over to the point where it's just about to tip in the direction of the radius of the turn, now you've basically doubled that width. So the control leaning basically lets you double what the vehicle can do statically. I did some calculations for a theoretical trike. And the lean angle that I calculated, the 26 degrees, comes from saying that I'm going to lean it all the way over to the point where it's just about to tip. And at that point, it could handle 1G. And if you solve for that, it's 26 degrees. Interestingly enough, the Toyota iRoad has about a 26-degree lean. And I'm going to say it's got a track of 30 inches, and this track is not the effective track. So this is the track of the wheels. The effective track is actually 20 inches because of the 2/3 thing. And I'm going to say the center of gravity height is 25 inches. And I'm going to do some comparisons. So we're going to take this 30-inch track, 25-inch CG height, and 26-degree lean, and see what our rollover resistance is. So the static version has a rollover resistance of 0.4 Gs. If this was a quad, and I know we're not talking quads, but you can't avoid them as far as good solutions to problems, even though they're illegal. A quad version has about 50% more rollover resistance than the three-wheel version. So that would be about 0.6 Gs. With this 26-degree lean angle, the rollover resistance is about 0.5 G. And if you did a controlled lean trike, you could get to the 1G. So you see a comparison between a static trike, a quad, a free-leaning trike, and a controlled lean trike. And that's what's kind of driven me to the controlled lean trike. And the Tripendo is a controlled lean trike.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for that fascinating presentation about leaning trikes. That was great. I have one question that kind of comes to mind. So, considering some of the issues that the modern fighter jets encountered in the last 20 years, where they had control surfaces that could do amazing things, but no pilot could control it. And it seems to me to be maybe a connection here, a similarity between some of the things you're talking about, where you've kind of solved the issues of leaning, but in a practical sense, can't get a bike rider to be able to do these things. Have you seen, or could you foresee a situation where there is some sort of electronic device that could evaluate in real time these leaning equations and solve for them with, I don't know, servo motors, or in some way assist the leaning trike and bringing it into fruition?
Exactly, especially when we're talking about e-trikes. So the reason that the Toyota iRoad works and my Mark I Ecovia didn't work is they have controls to do these things. With having a battery on board and using a controlled lean approach, it would be very straightforward to have the rider not worry about it at all. You could do it two different ways. The one way that I think is more practical is an incremental approach. That being, the sensors are going to sense the angle of the steering and the lateral or your speed. So from those two things, you can calculate what the G's are. So as opposed to your auto control continually leaning, which would waste electricity, it could be a static trike up until the point where your controls thought you were going to get in trouble, and then it could just add lean to it. The interesting thing with the controlled leaning is you feel lateral accelerations, whereas on a free leaning, you don't. Like a bicycle, you don't feel lateral accelerations. Going around a corner in a car, of course, you feel lateral accelerations. So when you've added the extra bump of leaning with controlled leaning, you are going to feel like it's pulling you away from the center of the curve. But yes, having a motor there, it'd be very straightforward to have electronic control. And the design for the follow-on from the EcoVia 3 that I have has a rotating tiller that would easily be attached to a motor to do that. The question is safety. If your motor cuts out, if your battery cuts out, what happens there? So the mechanical engineer in me says, let's try to do it mechanically, but it'd be much better if the design didn't require a person to interact with.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for taking the time to work with me on this and to explain the world of tilting trikes that we've been dabbling in, as I've said. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future. I think we're going to explore some more subjects. Craig, why don't we finish up with, if you could tell folks about your blog. What's it called? And we'll put the link in the description below.
It's Left-Handed Cyclist with no space. And I'll explain it clearly. I must be left-handed to do that. But the inference is, historically, the left hand was a bad thing. In Italian, left is sinestro, sinister. In French, it's gauche. So I cover the topics that the conventional cyclists won't touch, right? I don't worry about the minutia of frame design or tire pressure. I pick the weird stuff that a good cyclist avoids, right? So
makes sense. Well, yeah, I encourage folks to take a look at that. And we've talked about it. I think we will have you on again, and we'll check out some of the other topics of interest that you cover in your blog, and maybe some other stuff. So, sure. Dr. Craig Cornelius, thank you so much for joining us on the Laid Back
Gary,
Bike Report.
Thank you for the opportunity to bend people's ears.
Appreciate it. All right, and there is Dr. Craig Cornelius with us live, and Honza and Peter as well. First of all, Craig, thanks again for working with me on this fascinating discussion. I don't know if you were prepared for the fighter jet question. I'm not sure where that came from, but you handled it beautifully. Now, let's, if we could, let's start, Craig, with any final thoughts you had, maybe anything you felt like you might have left out of that discussion. If you could briefly let us know about that.
A few errors. Georgiev's trikes are Varney trikes. They're not vectors. It's a tough problem, which is why nobody solved it. If you recall that summary chart, the criteria row that had the most no's was height. Everybody can do everything except meet the height. Make it high and make it narrow. A bicycle works very well with that, but a bicycle doesn't work well on slippery conditions. I noticed in the Tour de France this year, instead of using motorcycles, they're using three-wheel leaning trikes. The most noted brand is a Piaggio MP3. And the reason they do that is if you've got a three-wheel leaning trike and you're on a slippery surface, you're still going to slide, but you're not going to tip over. And that's where the popularity of those come from. So the Piaggio, though, is a free leaning trike, and there are cases of beginning riders getting on them and tipping them over.
All right. Great. We had, like I said, I have Honza and Peter with us, and I'm going to let them make comments or ask questions, but we did have a few questions in the chat that I wanted to bring up. First of all, from Peter Vick, actually asking the question that I titled the entire webcast with, what's the point of this? And you, I think it was early on in your discussion, I think you answered many of these, and Honza actually popped in and kind of reiterated what you talked about in terms of having higher trikes that will not tip and give you better visibility. So quickly, what would you say the major point is of a tilting trike? Why?
It's to be able to have a narrow width and a good height and still be stable. One morning a week, I ride the Avatar down to a park, and 10 miles of that ride is on roads with cars, and it's during rush hour. The Avatar, my head height's about 52 inches. Even at that height, when the trucks are going by, I feel intimidated by their presence. I wouldn't want to be lower. On the other hand, I don't know, most of your readers have probably tried to ride a bike on a wet, snowy surface, and it just doesn't work. So if you're going to ride it under all circumstances, I think you need 3 or 4 wheels to give you that confidence that I'm not going to tip over.
And here's Michael Smith kind of reiterating what you're talking about here. Trails and paths require sharper turns than some trikes can make without tilting around his location in Indiana. So a tilting trike makes for a safer ride. You just mentioned 4 wheels, which you also did in your talk, and that popped up there in the chat as well. Why not 4 wheels? Well, 4 wheels works. You made that point. This is about trikes, though, and there are some advantages.
And a 4-wheeler is, with the exception that you have to steer 2 wheels instead of 1 if you have a Delta front steer or a Tadpole rear steer. They're simpler, right? And you don't have to worry about them. That's why you see so few 3-wheel cars, because there's all these little extra boxes you have to check off with a 3-wheel car. With a 4-wheel car, you just go and do it.
All right. How about the weight? So what is the effect of a tilting mechanism on the overall mass of a vehicle? Obviously, you can't give us each one, but how much percentage-wise, let's say, does it add to add tilting mechanism?
I'm just ballparking here, maybe 50% to the weight of the frame, 50% to the weight of the structure.
Quite significant, without doubt. All right. I'm going to look for further questions. In the meantime, Honza, did you have a question or a comment for Craig?
Well, my main question was about the example of when it would be great to have a tilting trike, or the examples. So you have mentioned in snowy conditions or very slippery conditions. But does a quad solve it? And is the problem of quad only the illegality in terms of bicycle standard then?
Well, if you talk about a fixed leaning trike, it gives you about 30% greater rollover resistance than a comparable quad would. But that 30% isn't worth the extra complexity. So I think the problem is, as you state, is legality. It's not a bicycle, and once you motorize it, then is it a car? And that's what we're fighting. And as Gary has brought up, that's an issue that this community should discuss and see if there's a way forward. because there are, the Quattrovelo and the old Pentacar, they were all quads, and they wouldn't work here. So.
Yep.
All right.
And then I
Go
think
ahead.
the electronic is a perfect solution. I mean, there are even if you have an let's say a trike with electric trike with electronic shifting, they always have to cut out the motor first and the shifting later. Same with the lights charged by the main battery. So they have to cut out the motor first when the battery is empty, and then as the final cutout would be the lights. So you can add that in the row of cutouts and still have it locked at the end if it's necessary.
Right.
So
I think it's quite workable. It's just a matter of when you're the salesperson, do you want to be explaining this and say, well, it really works great until your battery goes out?
But nobody wants to ride it without the battery. That's with the e-assist. People don't want to ride it.
Yeah.
They always take care about it, and you can have a big red light there flashing like.
Right. Nobody runs out of gas in a car or lets their battery run out in an electric vehicle, right?
Like
I mean,
this.
It's something that you just avoid. All right, Hans, is that it for you?
Yeah.
Thanks.
You.
Thanks for your contribution. Peter, what do you have?
Well, first, from a sales point of view, I rode one lean steer. It was a tilt lock lean steer trike at a Recumbent CycleCon several years ago, and it was neat, and I could see how it would work. I don't remember the brand name. I don't think it went into production, but it occurred to me, if I had this in the shop, it would be as expensive as a trike and as heavy as a trike, actually more expensive and heavier, and you'd still have to learn to ride it. And the main advantage of trikes in the showroom is that you just get on and go away, and it's fun. There's not very little learning curve. So it would violate that rule of marketing. Not that that's necessarily a rule, but anyway. But clearly it has advantages to a rider who's skilled enough, or a system that's charged up and smart enough, or, whatever. It would have advantages. I think the legality issue is something we should petition Congress about. It's ridiculous that they're limiting us to vehicles that are less safe. By default, a trike is less safe than a quad, especially if you take it to a 48-inch height. Obviously, if you take something like a low tadpole, okay, they don't turn over in corners hardly at all. If you lean in, they're real good. But if you're going to go in traffic, you want to be higher than that. I rode a organic transit. What's the name of the organic transit?
The Elf?
Elf. Yeah, I rode the Elf, and that was pretty neat, but it's over 4 feet wide.
Yeah.
So
where are you going to ride that?
One problem with that was that, their idea was that it would be visually it would be a car. It would consume the lane. But one problem with that, if it's over 4 feet wide, the inside of a tractor trailer is less than 8 feet. So you can't pass two of them past each other in and out. And so then to deliver it from North Carolina to New York was going to cost, $1,500 freight or something. That's wow, So I think that it needs to be lower. 48 inches is a good number. I think 3 feet wide is a pretty good number, but there are bike paths where that'll be a problem. But I don't live where there's bike paths, so I don't see that myself. I mean, in the showroom, we do see people that talk about that. But I think something, eventually there's going to be a practical vehicle, and I think they're going to be popular, and that we're waiting for it to appear. Something that's really got my attention now, but it won't be in the States for a long time, is the pod bike. Podbike.com, I believe it is. It has the European rule is you can't have more than 250 watts of battery power. So it has two rear wheels that are driven. The battery drives one rear wheel with 250 watts, and the pedals drive a generator that generates up to 250 watts, and that powers the other rear wheel. So there's no drive line. So it's extremely simple. Now you lose some percent in translation from mechanical at the pedals to electric and back to mechanical at the wheel. But the lack of maintenance and the design simplicity, if you could build a system that was simple and super low maintenance, durable, trouble-free, I really want to ride one of those, but they're not going to make it in the U.S.
The pod bike is an interesting choice, and they've been on the show.
That's where I heard about it. Was
right,
on the show. Very interesting.
But to be clear, this is not a tilting vehicle.
No, it's not.
But it does check all of the other boxes.
Well, I don't know about it. It may not pull 1G in a corner. I'm not sure. That's probably its downfall.
It is a quad.
It is a quad, right? So we'd have to change the law.
Right.
Yep.
And we're going to, just to be clear to folks, let them know, Doug Davis and I have been working on this for a while. And Peter, you're going to be involved too. We're going to do an entire show on this very issue, on the legality of 2, 3, and 4 wheels. We're going to get into specifics, and we're going to talk about how maybe we can address our legislation, address some legislation, Congress people and such, to get this thing into a situation where it's more practical. So I don't want to belabor that, but that's obviously very, very important. I wanted to, Peter, did you have anything else on that? I want to finish up
the legality is a major issue, and it should be overcome. But just, my dad was a physics professor, and he said the multiple of anecdote is data. So I have a few anecdotes about a legality of things, right? We had a customer that put a gas motor on a bicycle. Now, that's clearly illegal, period. And not only is it illegal, it's noisy. So it's obviously illegal. Well, he got pulled over by the police one day, and he's like, uh-oh, now I'm in for it. And the policeman walked up to him and said, where can we get some of these motors to put in our patrol bikes? So they didn't care if it was legal. They wanted them. So, it depends on where you are. Obviously, an officer could enforce the law, although it's maybe not real likely. But one thing that could happen is if you were riding a vehicle that was illegal and you had an accident, then you'd be in court and it would be discovered that it's illegal. So legality is important, and I think that's a good discussion for us to have on this show. Okay, yeah, and we're going to do that. The last thing I think is the most practical issue. In your talk, Craig, you talk about the tilting trike. You talked about all the different kinds, and you really said this is not really still solved, right? I mean, all these people are still in the chat. We're getting questions about, if for this to work, we need major manufacturers to jump on board and put this out if this is going to ever succeed, which I think is obviously true. But, none of them have blinds on, and I think they're all aware of what's out there. And we don't see a tilting trike being put forth, by a Cat Trike or a Terra Trike or a Greenspeed or any of them. So, Craig, I guess I'd like to finish up with you on your vision for the future of this. Will it be solved? Do you see it as going into major production, at least in terms of how trikes are in major production around our country and around the world? What do you see as the future of tilting trike?
Well, it always comes down to cost, right? If you have, electric assist tilting trike, and you have the money to put in all the technical features, it will solve the problem. Whether it sells to lots of people is hard to say. Look at, the Pedicar is a classic example. In 1973, the Pedicar was about $550. It never made mass production, and it was well designed. So you might have an answer there that, as some of your watchers have said, it may be too complicated to be worthwhile. And that's, I'm not a marketing person. Can you solve the problem technically? Issues like weight of the vehicle become hindrances that say the problem isn't solved. The Ecovia Mark III weighed too much. I don't know if you'll see people riding them all over the place because of the cost. Let's say the cost is going to be $6,000. Can you buy a car or something else with that $6,000 that you feel is a better investment? I don't know. So things like the the European, I'm thinking of the pod bike. Very interesting design, addressed a lot of the issues. That's a classic example of if quads don't bother you, will that become popular? And I'm sure that they hope that it will. Who will ride it? That's the big question. Even my brief exposure that electric scooters have cut into the people that would ride an electric bicycle. Why you're going to hop on an electric bicycle and get your clothes dirty when you can stand on an electric scooter. So the answer to, I guess, micromobility, I don't know what that is at this point.
Sure.
And we're not the simplest solution. Compare yourself to the electric scooter and say, are we going to lure someone away? You can't ride an electric scooter in a downpour. Well, maybe you can but if that doesn't bother you, if you live in a sunny climate, you might just invest in an electric scooter.
There we go. So we're awaiting a final solution to all of these problems. If there's one, that would be great. It seems as though there may be multiple solutions that may find markets. So we'll see how that all works out. But I think we're going to leave it there for now. So Dr. Craig Cornelius, again, thank you so much for being with us. The Left-Handed Cyclist is the blog, and Craig has been writing that for quite some time. Lots of interesting stuff there. I encourage you to take a look. And Craig, you have said that you will come back on the show. We'll talk over some other of your interesting ideas and subjects with cycling, recumbent cycling. You'll do that?
Indeed, I will.
It sounds great. So again, thanks, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, folks, we are going to move on to Peter Stull's segment here about transporting your trike. So, Larry, let's have a look.
Hi. Well, that was a great ride. Now I'm going to put the bike on the roof of the car to get home. First thing I'll do is, it might rain, so I'm going to take the bag off so the stuff in the bag doesn't get wet. Then I'll pick the bike up. This is a cat trike, so it's pretty light. Lighter than most. A little awkward. So there we are. So I've got it lined up so that the two front wheels are touching the roof and touching the roof bar, the roof rack bar. If I was going to do this very often, I'd move the other rack bar forward so that it could touch the tire and the roof at the same time, but I'm not going far. This will be fine. Now I've got these two ratchet straps. I always like to use more than one because if you use one ratchet strap and anything goes wrong, you hear this loud noise behind you. And that was your trike, so we avoid that. So I use at least two ratchet straps and tie it down thoroughly. But it is supposed to rain. Maybe I'll put it inside the back so I don't have to worry about it. And if I decide to go to a drive-through restaurant on the way home, the bike survives much better if it's inside than if it's on the roof. I'm going to put the bike in the car, and I've got a method I think works pretty good. First thing I do is I put the left pedal forward, and then I step in here between the frame and the wheel, and I do it on the left side because the right side's got that greasy chain on it. I want to avoid that greasy chain. So I'll get over here on the left side, and my wife won't be explaining the grease marks on my legs that way, you see? So then I'll pick the bike up, and sit the rear wheel on the back of the car. Now I want to get out of the way because as soon as I start to roll this bike backward, the pedals are going to go backwards. And it's easy to get pinched between the pedals and the bike. Now notice I'm putting the rear wheel over to the passenger side. Sometimes, you know, when I first started putting trikes in cars, I put the rear wheel between the two seats, and you know that works pretty good. But if the dog runs out in front of you and you stand on the brakes, that bike is going to run right up in the front seat and say hello. And when I stand on the brakes, I don't need to be distracted by a bike coming up to say hello. So I put it in diagonal, and that way it's locked in the back and it can't get out without my permission. And there you go. Sometimes people they look up a trike and they measure the length of the luggage space in their car and they measure the length of the trike. They say, well, the trike is longer than the luggage space. But the car doesn't, the brochure about the car doesn't tell you the diagonal length of the luggage space. Because that's how we put trikes in, is diagonal. And it works very well. So thanks for watching and enjoy your trike.
All right. And enjoying his trike right now is, who is that? Peter Stull.
Hi.
All right, Peter. So there you go. Pop it on.
Turn the
Folks,
echo off.
there's
here.
nothing we love more on the Laid Back Bike Report than action shots. And there it is. Can you hear us?
Yes.
There we go. So Peter, great segment. Are you going to be doing some more fit the trike into the truck kind of things? What do you got? What do you got in store for us?
Well, we're going to do bikes and trikes and a variety of vehicles, and we have, there's a certain number of vehicles that our employees have, and you'll get to see the inside of some of those vehicles. But every once in a while, a customer will come in with an interesting vehicle, and we will beg, borrow, and steal away to cram a bike in the back of their car on a videotape. So we're planning to do that. One time I put a long wheelbase Recumbent in the back of a Corvette. I wish I had got a video of that. All I got was still pictures. But so we're going to have some fun. One thing I forgot to mention in the video is that is a Chevy Equinox. And also putting it on the roof of the Equinox, I'm 6'2", and I weigh 180, and I'm moderately rugged for 180 pounds. That was a cat trike trail, which is fairly light. It's awkward, and it's just a bit heavy being so awkward. So, yeah, there are a whole lot of trikes you're not going to put in the roof of a car alone. At least I'm not. And if it has e-assist, there's no way I'm going to put it in the roof of a car alone. So we'll do something with ramps into the back of a vehicle. We'll put some bikes and trikes in small vehicles, and we're just going to try to see how wide a variety of topics and vehicles and bikes and trikes we can come up with to keep this interesting for months. Yeah.
Sounds good. And yeah, you got to look for that Corvette because I want to see that for sure.
Mile
High Triker, Greg. Hi, nice to see you. Greg says, great stuff, Peter. Too bad I had to learn this through trial and error, which I'm sure is almost all of what the rest of us have done. So Peter's going to see if he can shortcut it all for us and find a bunch of different kind of vehicles and different kinds of trikes and bikes to put them in. So Peter, thanks again.
Very good. Thank you.
See you next time, pal. All right. We are going to move on to our review team, and we are starting out with our pal Tim Segard from Bike Revolution, in Odessa, Florida, and he's going to review the amazing Cruzbike S40. Larry, let's have a look.
Hey guys, it's Tim from Bent Revolution, and this is the Cruzbike S40 for the Laid Back Bike Report. Let's go. This has a 1x11 drive system with SRAM shifters. It's one click for higher gear and 2 clicks, a long push for a lower gear. The 1x11 is an 1142 cassette, so you've got a huge range to climb hills or go fast. It's got disc brakes, mechanical disc brakes front and back. It's got a carbon seat with a nice cushion, give you a good comfortable ride. It's also got a very elaborate system to size the bike. This is sized for me, so it's enormous, but it can be adjusted here and this whole piece moves. It can be adjusted here. Even the bottom bracket can be adjusted for different size people. So for me, it's all the way down. For others, it'll be all the way up. This bike will fit riders from 5'2" to 6'5", and it only weighs about 27 pounds, so it's light as a feather. Practically floats. This bike has through axles, so no dropouts. These go all the way through, twist in. And here's an interesting feature. Built into the through axle is this handy little tool where you can use it to tighten the axle, and it stores right in place in the hollow part of the axle right there. Let's go for a ride. The bike shifts very easily using the one click system, 2 clicks for the lower gear. The bike puts you in a really comfortable position, very maneuverable. Cruzbike offers a nice selection of racks and bags to put all your stuff in, as well as some really great accessories that will make your bike even easier to use. The headrest isn't my favorite. I would get the adjustable custom headrest. Trouble with riding at night in Florida, you get a bug in your eye every now and then, which I've just done. Speed bump. Woo! A big jump. The S40 would be a great bike for taking on a cross-country tour. I mean, look at this. You're in just a very relaxed position all day, no stress. It's basically like having the back of a bike on the front of a bike. It accelerates pretty well. I would have no problem with getting this started from an intersection. I think I'd feel real confident with that. I've got a mirror over here so I can see what's behind me. I had one of these this is my daily ride for quite a while. I loved it. And this one, you know, it's long enough for me to stretch out and get a good extension on my bike pedal. Some people can ride without hands. I can ride with one hand or with the other hand. The disc brakes are good, but they're kind of a little bit on the spongy side, I think. The shifting is very crisp. One click puts you to a harder gear, and a full press goes to an easier gear. So it's just one action, but some people get confused until they get used to it, and then it's second nature. Cruzbike is known for their innovative front drive approach to the recumbent bike. They're constantly refining their bikes to improve performance and comfort. As perhaps the tallest recumbent dealer in North America, comfort and fit are important to me. It's got a new headset that helps dampen vibration, which is great. And that helps to give you a smoother ride. This bike features a marine matte finish paint that I think is really attractive. It also has 700 by 32 tires for a smooth, confident ride. Probably shouldn't be riding at night in Florida with my mouth open. You do catch a lot of bugs that way. It really is true that this bike rides faster than most road bikes and climbs better than other recumbents. I think front-wheel drive has a lot to do with that, but Florida is so flat, it's really hard for me to say for sure how great it is climbing hills. This bike, as equipped, is around $4,600, and I think it's worth it for that. You get a bike that is really versatile. You can do a lot of things with it. Whether you want to go on a tour, a weekend ride, maybe an endurance event, bike packing, this can do it all. Hey, while you're watching me swallow bugs out here, there's like a swarm of mosquitoes all around my head. If you like this video and would like to see others, just subscribe and like that like button. And if you'd like to see one of these in person, come by to Bent Revolution in Odessa, Florida. We'd be glad to help you out.
All right, Tim, Bent Revolution. What a great review. Honestly, Tim, I think you are the tallest reviewer that's out there. And the suggestion I would have for you is next time you do a bike or a trike review, just go ahead and do the mosquito repellent review along with it. So, Tim Segard, thank you so much. Let's move along now to Nina Paley's next segment for us. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this as we enjoy all of Nina's. A little bit of a electric trike review at an interesting spot. Larry, let's see it.
Here is some Illinois gravel. It is coarse, it is deep, it is soft, and this is my usual road bike, and I'm walking it across this gravel because if I don't, I will slip and slide and be miserable and stressed out. I wanted to show this to contrast my usual ride with what I got to do last weekend in Michigan. I visited Central Michigan the last weekend of July to attend a small women's music festival and test ride this prototype trike that may or may not be a wombat or a honey badger. But whatever it is, I am riding it from Grand Rapids to Wayland, Michigan, like now. This trike is a Greenspeed Magnum frame with a Bosch motor and two 500-watt batteries with low-pressure, wide, knobby tires. All of which is outside my usual wheelhouse, especially the pedal assist. Obviously, I am using the pedal assist a lot because it's fun. Electric pedal assist gives you a rush, also known as euphoria. It distorts reality, making you think you are stronger, faster, and just generally better than you really are. And it's immediately addictive. It's basically heroin for cyclists. I am having a blast on this thing, though. It is super fun. It's comfortable. The seat is squeaking. I don't know if the strut has some squeak or what. That up there is the motor. You can hear the squeaking of the seat. I have no idea what's causing that. I don't care. I am on my first patch of gravel. Let's see how these big chunky tires and the electric assist handle the gravel. Well, behind me, you can see the gravel. I just did maybe 3 miles of that. It's about to end. It's the kind of gravel that I guess would have been manageable on my Tour Easy. It would not have been very fun on my Tie Rush, but I could have done it. I mean, there's patches that are fairly smooth. So it would have been tolerable, but on this thing, it is fun. It is so much fun that I am sad that the gravel is over. I planned to ride about 25 miles to the festival, which I did. But once I got there, I realized I did not have to actually get out of this trike. It rolled fine over grass and tree roots and gravel and trails, and turned out to be the best available seat. I never had to use my camp chair. I never even had to walk anywhere. I visited friends, joined discussions, and even took in some of the shows, all in my comfy, all-terrain luxury trike. While my gal pals spent the weekend getting high on their drugs of choice, I indulged in the electric pedal assist. I figured, it's the weekend, I'm on vacation, and everyone else is doing it, right? My darling queen, come dance with me. Naturally, other women at the festival wanted to try my ride/comfy chair, and of course, they loved it too.
That one little bump there, that was awesome. This is fantastic, and I'm buying one of these.
In fact, I never want to attend another outdoor festival without something like this. These are the tires that have been totally awesome on dirt and gravel and sand and lumps and tree trunks and all that stuff. Love these tires. What's that tire? looks like it's... Use this bent tire. It just says Schwalbe. Oh, it's a fat. Yeah. Awesome tires. Look at that. Levels. I just rode it 6 miles on 0, basically. I guess it has 5 levels if you include 0. The first level is called Eco. Let's go on that a little bit. Oh man, do I feel it. Oh, it feels so good. I've been referring to this as heroin. Even just the eco level is so much easier than pedaling with nothing. And I am so glad that I don't have one of these at home because I would be a total addict. I'll just go up one more level. I don't want to crash in anything. This is called Tour. Oh, it's ridiculous. I'm hardly doing anything. And here I am floating along on gravel. Addictive. I got addicted to it pretty much immediately. I'm going to use it tomorrow when I go back up to Grand Rapids for sure. And then I'm going to go cold turkey when I get home. It is another beautiful day in central Michigan, and I am riding this back to Grand Rapids. I had a great weekend on this trike. Fortunately, I didn't suffer severe withdrawal when I got home. But if I'm ever at an outdoor festival again, I have got to have one of these.
All right. That was great. Hi, Nina.
Hello.
So I think, first of all, we need to thank Marshall Randall, right, at TerraTrike /Greenspeed. How did that, tell us about how you got that. What was the process there?
Well, I told you that I wanted to review stuff, and you put me in touch with Marshall, and emailed Marshall and called Marshall and emailed Marshall and called Marshall and emailed Marshall and called Marshall. And a few months later, there I was in central Michigan on the trike. Thank you, Marshall.
Couldn't have been easier. Marshall's an easy guy to get a hold of. So, but he always comes through, and that was great. So yeah, and that was, if I'm not mistaken, the same trike that was used on that last show we did, where Marshall raced on his Aero, his Greenspeed Aero, raced the e-assisted version. Was that the e-assisted version that he was up against?
Yes, I believe it was the same tires that they used for that, but I'm not positive. Okay. They have a variety of different tires that can go on that thing.
All right. Well, it looks like you had a great time, obviously, and your real first experience with e-assist, right?
Yes, it was just fantastic. I would like to try other trikes for comparison. I know that the Magnum is designed for really heavy riders, and that makes it like super strong and super robust. So I don't really have experience riding a more delicate or lighter frame, but I have to say, being able to just ride over everything with ease was so much fun.
It was quite obvious watching that video. So I really enjoyed that. I think all our viewers did as well. Nina, thank you so much. We will hopefully have more from you next month.
All right. Thanks.
Sounds great. All right, folks, let's move along to the sports report here. We're going to finish up with that. You want to bring Denny up here? Denny, we had somewhat of a busy month putting some stuff together, I think. And, we did first of all a recording. You did with our pal Mike Mowett, who both raced and reported on this HPRA race in Detroit a week and a half or so ago, right?
Yeah, it's a couple of weeks ago now. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's have a look. This is a great report. Let's listen to Mike's report on this.
We're here with Mike Mowett of Detroit, Michigan, and give us a report on the recent HPRA races in the Detroit area. Take it away there, Mike.
Hi, Denny. Thanks for having me on. This past weekend, August 21st to 22nd, 2021, marked the return to event racing for many racers who had a 2-year hiatus due to COVID canceling a lot of our races. It was a pretty good turnout. We had a mix of probably half newcomers, half returning folks. We had farthest competitors came from Iowa and Maryland. The rest came from like Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, Indiana. Wisconsin. So this year saw the typical mix of 6 different events over 2 different days. This was the 1-hour time trial, which kicked off the weekend on Saturday morning. Due to the high heat, we decided to run everyone all at once on the track. Sometimes we separate out the faster streamlined vehicles from the unfaired vehicles. But being that we only had like 18 to 19 competitors total this year, it made sense to run everyone at once. Unfortunately, some of our regular folks weren't there who ran the timing system, so we had some timing glitches. We had to end up timing everyone by hand or kind of relying on the honor system for them to report their odometer distance after the race. Some of them used Strava and so forth to give us speeds and times. This is one of the folks who's been on the show in the past, Ron Thompson, with his G4 home-built front-wheel drive recumbent. Him and his wife Peggy came from Maryland to the event. They were 2 of our first-timers, and a lot of folks enjoyed riding their bikes and seeing them in person. This is Tony Levan from Illinois. He has a home-built coral liner, or made out of coroplast. He built the frame and the fairing. He rides this on the open road. He's also been typically amongst the faster folks at our events. This is Dennis Grelk from Iowa on a home-built front-wheel drive mid-racer. He kind of fared in the areas behind his shoulders, you can see, and in front of his boom, and he made that like orange nose cone on there. He's always been one of the fastest riders, and this year, well, actually, prior to COVID, he came up with this bike, and it's still one of the fastest bents out there. This is Mark Cosma, another first-timer on a Cruzbike Vendetta V20. He did real well in the events, except for me dropping him at the launch of the hill climb. I've been reading that his shoulder is hurting him. So, Mark, I do apologize for that. This is Dan Glatch in now probably 20-year-old Streamliner. Actually more like 30 years old. This was built in South Africa. Then it made its way to the U.S. It once went 60 miles per hour out in Colorado. But this is Dan Glatch, who's owned it for a number of years. He decided to ride with the top off because of the high heat. We had like 90-degree heat, no overcast skies, and the humidity was bearable. But it was okay once you were on the track riding. But when you were just standing around, it got to be pretty hot. This is one of the students from Grove City College. It was their first time at the event. This is a trike that I believe they built themselves. They only rode it in the one event. They had 4 students and one advisor. They have been talking with Mike Eliason. Mike Eliason is the co-founder of the Michigan Human Powered Vehicle Group, and he's done a wonderful job keeping in touch with people and trying to get people to come to our event. Our Michigan Human Powered Vehicle Rally event has been going on for at least 36 years. The years we didn't have it at Waterford Hills, we had the International Human Powered Vehicle Championships at Michigan International Speedway in 1989. And then in 2009, we had an event that I organized at the Ford Motor Company 5-mile test oval in Romeo, Michigan. Both of those events saw like the world 1-hour record set by a human powered vehicle. And in total, I think we had like 12 world records between those two events. But for most years, we've been holding it at the Waterford Hills Raceway, which is a 1.4 mile car racing track. It has 9 turns, 1 hill that's about 30 feet tall. And it's always been a great place for people to come. And this year, with the track being repaved in 2019, people really got to see it and enjoy it for the first time. And they allow camping overnight there. They have showers on site. So it's really one of the folk. It's really one of the favorite destinations on the HPRA race circuit. The Michigan event was the first event on the calendar. We have the Iowa races coming up September 25th and 26th at the Hawkeye Downs Raceway in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Tell us about what the events were and what the outcome was there, Mike.
Yeah, on Saturday morning, we had the 1 hour time trial. So this is a event where it's supposed to be a non-drafting event, and you ride as many laps as you can of the main 1.4 mile track, which means you go up the hill every lap. So Jonathan Walters of Cincinnati, Ohio, won that event on his stock no-com low racer, which is actually Tom Ollinger's old low racer, which he fixed up for him. And Jonathan rode, I believe, like 26.9 miles in 1 hour, which was pretty close to our track record for a stock vehicle. And after that, after lunch, our next event was kind of a unique event. It's called the Hill Climb Coast Down. So the competitors line up one by one at the bottom of our 30-foot hill, and you basically race up to the top. And once at the top, you stop pedaling and you just allow your vehicle to coast. And when you can coast no longer, you mark your stopping position with a piece of chalk that we give you. So typically what happens is the lighter, faster vehicles like the upright bikes or the bare bones recumbents make it up the hill first. So in this case, Rick Toller on his upright time trial bike made it up in like a staggering 18 seconds, which was again pretty close to our track record. But at the top, what happens is the more streamlined vehicles obviously coast further. So Dennis Grelk and his home-built streamliner coasted like far further than anyone else on the track. He made it like almost a mile around the track. The rest of us marked our spots. Actually, Ron Thompson did pretty well with his G4. I remember being out on the track. He had like 3 spots lined up in a row. He made 3 runs. After the Hill Climb Coast Down, we do a standing start kilometer event where competitors again line up one by one, and we go around 3 turns on the track. And so 0.62 miles is 1 kilometer. And again, Jonathan Walters was the fastest. Sunday morning is our 200-foot sprints, where we line up at the top of the hill, and again we go one by one. We accelerate down the hill, we cruise around a far bend and build up more speed, and then down the back straightaway we had a 200-foot timing trap set up. So Dennis Grelk was fastest in the streamliner at like 42 miles per hour. John Walters did like 2 runs at like almost exact same speed of like 41.2 miles per hour. I came in just behind him with a run of like 40.5 miles per hour, which I was pretty happy about. That was like my lifetime best. And then after that event, we did the 25 lap race, which was without the hill. It was on a shorter loop. It wound up being about a 10-mile length. John Walters again won that race. He was pretty much the far and away winner for the weekend. I'd also like to thank all the volunteers that helped with the event over the weekend. We had Mike Eliason, Gary Hill, Paul Pancella, as well as a lot of the racers that volunteered their time in between events to help set up and tear down the race courses, do timing, etc. So it really takes a village to keep one of these events going, and we're pretty fortunate that we have a good group of volunteers each year.
Now, can you tell me how people can get involved, what's coming up, and if you'd like to know more, do you have a website? Do you have a Facebook page? Where can we go?
Yeah, in the past, Recumbents.com has been our best source of information. There's a calendar section posting. There's also the forums on Recumbents.com and Bent Rider Online, where we would post that this race is coming up. There's a HPRA, Human Powered Race America, Facebook webpage where we also post upcoming events and race results. And I just highly encourage anyone who wants to try a race, just to think of it as not a race. It's really more so like a personal achievement type of endeavor.
Terrific. Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. Hopefully they'll gain some traction again. I know there used to be 9 or 10 of these races around the country, and it's down to a few now, but it would be nice to see things pick up again. It looks like a lot of fun. Thanks so much, Mike, for your report there this weekend.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
All right, Mike is awesome, as you guys can see. I don't want to forget to thank Rob and Cameron Lloyd for the video that you saw in that piece, and Kevin Shaw, who took the pictures, the still pictures that you saw there. And Mike actually came up with those race results himself. So we appreciate Mike Mowett for everything he does for the Laid Back Bike Report. Denny, why don't you go ahead and finish off the report and tell us what else is coming up there?
Well, Larry Seidman has a report on Seidman. I keep doing that. Larry Seidman has a report on the National Nebraska Senior Games and the Steamboat Triathalon. Take it away there, Larry.
All right. Boop. Larry, you are muted, first of all. You need to unmute. There we go.
Thanks, Danny.
And get this added to the stream. Sorry, guys. See, this is what happens when Gary does the directing. So, all right. I think we got it. Go ahead.
All right. So the Nebraska Senior Games were August 7th and 8th in Kearney, Nebraska. There were 4 races consisting of a 5K and a 10K time trial. And then there are road races of 20K and 40K in length. Recumbents were welcome in all 4 of the races, including the road races. Up first was the 5K time trial. They send each racer out one at a time on a set interval. And here's William Sayre lining up, and Tim Cada is already on his way out in the front. This is a very flat out and back course. Some of the traditional cyclists seemed incredulous after seeing the results after the first time trial, doubting Tim Cada's time of just over 7 minutes for the 5K. Up next was the longest of the 4 races, the 40K road race. If we can bring up the next slide. Yeah, so here's what it looks like at the start. This was a mass start with the recumbents lining up in the rear. So those incredulous feelings soon changed to belief as Tim Cada went from the back here with the recumbents straight ahead up with the lead group and stayed in front for most of the 40K. Then the next day, Sunday, was the 10K time trial. Next slide. And here is Opal on her way. Next slide. And so here's what Opal looks like from the other side with her game face on. The final race was the 20K road race. And then we got all the results together. So if you want, I won't belabor all the results there. Next slide. So the following weekend was the Steamboat Triathalon in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. This was a bit more scenic than Nebraska. 2 distances were offered: the sprint with a 12.4 miles of cycling, or the Olympic distance with 24.8 miles. Both distances were on a lumpy country roads along the Yampa River, offering spectacular views of the mountains. The sprinters had a course which looped around and then headed back to the lake before it actually got into town, while the Olympic distance went all the way into town, turned around, and then we had another climb before making it back to the lake. Next slide of Olivia. Well, there's a scene from the top. Next slide. And that's Olivia Jimenez, I think how to say her name. She has not gone through the process to become a paratriathlete. So she raced and got second place in the women's 65 to 69 age group. Next slide. This is Cobus Burger's VTX that he used on the sprint distance. He's gone through the process to become a physically challenged triathlete. So he was in the physically challenged sprint category, and he got a 6-minute lead over the other physically challenged triathlete who was on a upright bike, and he had the 6-minute excuse me, after the swim. Yeah, the other guy was gaining on him on the cycling, but then Cobus got it back on the 5K run. Next slide. And this is my Greenspeed Aero. I was the only physically challenged entrant in the Olympic distance, but I like to compare myself to the able-bodied racers, and I had the 4th fastest cycling split out of the 8 in my age group. Next slide. And here's the results of just the cycling split. Next slide. And then there's just a picture of Cobus and me at the lake after the awards when we were awarded these drinking glasses. That's it from here. Back to Denny for the remainder of the sports report.
Okay. Hey, very good. Thanks, Larry. First of all, I'd like to give a shout out to Larry Oslin for second place overall at the Mid-Atlantic 12-hour race with 249 miles. And finally, I'd like to mention the 2022 Senior Games in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, May 10th through the 22nd. The games will allow recumbent bikes in the 5K and 10K time trials. Additionally, you do not have to qualify in a state competition to enter. This is a unique opportunity for competition on a national stage. The time trials will be held consecutive days, May 18th and 19th. More information can be found at the nsga.com site, the National Senior Games Association. And I hope to see you there. I'm kind of planning on going over. That's it for this month. Until next time, stay on the bike and keep moving forward. Back to you, Gary.
All right, Denny, thank you so much. Great sports report, guys. Everybody, thank you so much. Okay, let's head off now to our sponsors who make this show possible every month. We're going to start out with TerraCycle. From fairings to headrests, whatever accessory you need, Pat and crew, well, they've got you covered. And Trailside Trikes. If you find yourself in Florida, near the Withlacoochee Trail, or in Knoxville, Tennessee, check out Andrew's shop and his amazing crew. And Cruzbike. Their patented, race and record-proven front-wheel drive geometry changes the rules of cycling. Now, comfort doesn't come at the cost of performance, but fair warning, your cheeks may hurt from smiling. And TerraTrike and Greenspeed Trikes. Your vision, whatever it is, TerraTrike has a trike to take you there, and Greenspeed's cutting-edge designs create performance through Aussie ingenuity. And Layback Cycles, the top USA dealer for TerraTrike and the premier source for Catrike, Ice, and Greenspeed. We give you the freedom to ride. And Recumbent CycleCon. We've postponed the 2021 Recumbent CycleCon trade show and convention, but please join us on October 8th and 9th, 2022 at the Montgomery County Fairgrounds in Dayton, Ohio. For more information, find recumbentcyclecon.com. All right, guys, we are going to finish up with the announcement about next month's Laid Back Bike Report. It is going to be October 3rd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, as always. And we are going to be taking to the skies with recumbent pedal power. We're going to have Varney, who's been on the show before, a member of the British Human Power Club. And he attended a competition in the UK there where they had the British Human Powered Flight Club competing with various sorts of recumbent powered flight. So I think you guys are going to really enjoy that. It's a really different kind of take from what we're used to, and we're going to work hard on taking a good close look at that as well. So now, how can you support the Laid Back Bike Report? You've seen our show. We hope you enjoy what we do. If you'd like to support us, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and click that little white eye up there. Find out more information from the laidbackbikereport.com website. And you can also see our Patreons all here in the background behind me. We love those guys. Patreon.com is a great way to support what we do at the Laid Back Bike Report. You can look us up, Laid Back Bike Report, on the Patreon.com and support us for as little as $1 a month. We would appreciate that. All right, guys, that is about it. Let's have one last goodbye to our crew and guests that are remaining. All right, Larry, great job on the directing. Denny, great sports report. Honza, Peter Stull is not with us any longer, but you guys made contributions to your parts and discussion today. We appreciate it. Nina, another great video. We appreciate everything that you do for us. And Dr. Craig Cornelius, of course, with that major report. Lots of great questions in the chat. A lot of guys talking about what you were discussing, Craig. So I know this is not going to be the end, and we look forward to having you on the show next time around. So, all right, guys, we'll see you all, and that's going to be it then. So I want to thank most of all of you viewers for watching every month. So until next month, from all of us here at the Laid Back Bike Report, so long, Bent Riders.